Hello, we're back. Max Wolf is back with us to break down the new look Atlantic Division. Who do you got winning the Atlantic Division this year, Max?
I chose the Boston Bruins. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals this past year, and they had a really good team. I think they've only gotten better. Made a couple moves in the offseason. They traded Tyler Seguin to the Dallas Stars for Louis Eriksson. They lost Nathan Horton via free agency and signed Jerome McGinley. I think that's a good move for them short term. They're a team that's come out and said they're looking to win the Stanley Cup this year. They want to be back there, and I think they've got the veteran players to do it. They had a great defensive core. They had the third best goals against in the NHL last year. And Tuukka Rask proved himself as a great goalie last year. He's done that every year. He's been the starter, so I have no reason to doubt this team.
Are you picking them to win the entire Eastern Conference?
I think there's a very good chance of that, yeah.
Okay. So who do you got number 2?
I have the Ottawa Senators. This team, I think there's a lot of teams that are up for grab in the top couple spots, but I picked Ottawa. They had a good season last year. They were 7th in the Eastern Conference, but they had a lot of injuries. They had Jason Spezza, Erik Karlsson, and even Craig Anderson, their goalie, were out for a majority of the season. I think with them back, I think they'll be great. They're a fairly young team. They're only getting better. They added Bobby Ryan in the offseason. I think he'll fit in great on that first line with McCallick and Spezza. And if they can stay healthy, I think they'll be number 2.
And you have, I know one of your favorite teams, Montreal Canadiens, finishing 3rd. What do you see from them this year?
Well, I think they can be 3rd, but they're going to need to improve from last season. They really tapered off in the bottom last few games, and Carey Price really needs a bounce-back year. They believe he's an elite goalie. He's the future of that team, but he did not play well last year. Only a .905 save percentage and a 2.59 goals against average. That needs to be better from him. He's really got to play up to his potential. They added Danny Briere in the offseason, which will help out the offense a lot. That makes their top 6 really good. A mix of veteran and young players like Alex Galchenyuk and Brendan Gallagher. I think they'll need to keep getting better, but I think this team has what it needs to be a playoff team again.
And rounding out the top half of this division, who do you got?
I have the Detroit Red Wings as number 4. They were, I believe, 7th in the Western Conference last year. They, of course, moved over in the new divisions. And I think this will be an interesting year for them. They, for the most part, a very veteran team. Guys like Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg. They added a couple pieces in the offseason. Stephen Weiss from Florida and Daniel Alfredson, the longtime Ottawa Senators captain. So I think they're a team that's really, this is one of their last years that they're going to have a chance to make the Stanley Cup. They made the statement that they want that by adding these pieces rather than go for rebuild, which I think is a good move. They were very good defensively last year, and I think with the addition of Weiss and Alfredson, they'll be better offensively this year, but I don't see them being a top team.
And obviously a very competitive division. You have Toronto finishing 5th. They were in the playoffs last year. What do you see from them this year?
Yeah, I think Toronto only got better. They lost a couple pieces offensively. They let some guys go, but they added David Clarkson and Dave Bolland via free agency. I think they'll be a better team, but they'll probably have a worse record because I think the Eastern Conference is very strong this year. So they may or may not make the playoffs. It'll depend a lot. They have now really 2 starting goalies in James Reimer and Jonathan Bernier. It'll be interesting to see how they play. Bernier's only been a backup to Jonathan Quick, so that'll be a big part of how the season goes. They also got some young players who are just going to keep getting better. Guys like Nazem Kadri and James Van Riemsdyk. So we'll see. I think they'll be a good team, but it'll be tough for them to make the playoffs.
Okay, and who do you have finishing 6th?
I have the Tampa Bay Lightning as 6th, and I think this is where the division, or this conference division, whatever they want to call it, starts to taper off. The Lightning, they lost longtime captain Vinny Lecavalier in the offseason, and they were an offense that was very good last year, but I don't see them being as good this year. They drafted Jonathan Drouin, a very good offensive player, but they've said he's going to play in the juniors, and I think they're taking another year to let their players get better before they make a move and become a playoff team. They got kind of similar to the situation as in Toronto. They have 2 goalies who they're going to be going with. Ben Bishop and Anders Lindback, and they did not do a very good job for them last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they improve or if they do.
And what do you see from Buffalo? You have them finishing 7th, a playoff team from a couple of years ago, and then kind of struggled last year. What do you see from them this year?
Well, I think they're on pace to a rebuild, but they're sort of in a weird place. They traded away a lot of their veterans, but they still have guys like Thomas Vanek and Ryan Miller, and I think this team should be rebuilding. They've made some changes. They got some new management, and I think this team, especially last year, showed that they're not a playoff team. But if they keep Miller and Vanek, they do, in theory, have a chance that every team at this stage likes to think they have a chance. And if they are going to make the playoffs, Ryan Miller needs to have a bounce-back year. He struggled a lot last year, so if he can play at his level, this team will have a chance, but I don't think he should be on the team. I think he should be traded to a team that has a playoff shot, and I don't think this team will be in the playoffs.
Do you think he'll have a bounce-back year? What's your prediction? Bounce-back year or no?
I think he'll bounce back a little bit, but he won't be quite to his former self.
Okay. And then you have, rounding out the 8-team division, you have the Florida Panthers. What do you see from them?
Well, I think they made it pretty clear that they're rebuilding. They got a lot of young guys that are going to be in the NHL this year and that you'll see play. Jonathan Huberdeau, obviously Calder Trophy winning, his best rookie of the year. They also got guys like Alexander Barkov and their goalie Jacob Markstrom, who are going to see a lot of playing time this year. They're really going to let their rookies and young guys play, and I think they have pieces to be a good team in the future, but they're going to need to keep drafting high and playing these players, let them get experience before they're going to be a good team.
And do you think it's fair to the Florida teams? It seems like conference realignment was really to cut down on travel time. It seems like Florida teams kind of got shafted on that end in this division. What do you think of that?
Well, it's tough. It's tough for them. Obviously they're playing with a lot of northern East Coast teams, but I think they're fine. The market has been okay to these Florida teams. A lot of people say Florida doesn't have a place in hockey, but they've got some loyal fans. I think they'll tough through it. They'll be fine.
Okay, that's it for us. Remember to check out the blog, follow me on Twitter, and we'll be back in the next couple of days to break down the Metropolitan Division.